You know those chips and the wine that they give you at church? What if I were to tell you that that stuff has actual power to it? In this video, I will explain to you why existence is God, God is Jesus, and Jesus is in communion, making communion the most powerful thing you can eat with your mouth and your face. I was at a philosophy conference one year, and I was discussing God's existence with my agnostic friend. He'd been studying the work of objectivist philosopher Ayn Rand, and he shared with me one of her postulations, which went something like this. In order for God to exist, existence has to exist first, so that God has a place to exist. Well, shoot. To make this more bite-sized, in order for you to watch this video on your phone, first your phone has to exist, otherwise you wouldn't be able to watch the video. This thought experiment flies directly in the face of the claim that God is omnipotent, because something existed before him and was more powerful than him. This thought experiment drove me crazy for the lesser part of 6 months. However, at that same philosophy conference, I was surprised to be introduced to the most radiant young lady I had ever met. She was a theist and a Christian. After the conference, we went our separate ways and went back home, but not long after began a long-distance courtship. We would speak often about family, theology, and philosophy. And that summer, I would blissfully live vicariously through her philosophy and psychology classes that she took at the local college. And it was she who, because of her classes, first introduced me to the work of famous medieval Catholic philosopher Thomas Aquinas. She told me that Aquinas had a definition for God which I hadn't heard before. That which no greater thing can be conceived. More simply, if you could think of something that's greater than God, then that thing is God. It dawned on me to apply what my new girlfriend had taught me about Aquinas to what my agnostic friend taught me about Ayn Rand's thought experiment. If God exists, existence has to exist before God can exist, making existence greater than God. But Aquinas says that if something is greater than God, then that thing is God. So if Ayn Rand is right, and Thomas Aquinas is right, then existence is God. At this point I wondered, how do I know I hadn't gotten carried away with my philosophy?
Idiot!
Does the Bible actually teach this conclusion I've arrived upon? If it doesn't, that means either the Bible is wrong, or much more likely, my philosophy is wrong. And I promise I'm still looping communion into this, just stay with me. Fortunately, that same year I had challenged myself to read the Bible cover to cover, and in the subsequent months following the philosophy conference, I finished it. So I began to contrast the Bible with my philosophy. I postulated the opposite of existence as non-existence, or in other words, life and death. But does the God of the Bible claim to be life? The Bible tells us about a man named Jesus who made some pretty big claims like, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Jesus just is life. If Jesus is life, then he is God. What do you know? My philosophical nomading had led me right where the Bible had been pointing me all along. Later, Jesus sits down at a dinner with his homies for the Passover meal. The Passover is a Jewish holiday that celebrates a story recorded in Exodus, when the Jews were rescued out of slavery in Egypt. Jesus decides to shake it up at this particular Passover celebration, and he says this, "Take and eat, this is my body." And he took a cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, "Drink of it, all of you, for this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins."
What? Wait, what?
Wait, hold on a second. If Jesus is life, and he told his disciples to eat his flesh, and drink his blood, does that mean his disciples are consuming life itself?
Cooked shrimp.
And if Jesus instituted that we should all do this to this day, does that mean that we receive life itself when we receive communion at church? What? Truly, I say to you, unless you eat this flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you. I'm left with one conclusion. Communion is the real presence of Jesus. It gives me truth, life, and forgiveness. How mere bread and wine become the real presence of Jesus is less important than the fact that it is a miracle from God. And finally, you should go take communion too.